Hello, Workplace Math 10 students. Today we're going to be looking at the first of 3 lessons on statistics, particularly discussing the topic of central tendency and the 3 different measures of central tendency, which are mean, median, and mode. So let's just take a look at what the assignment looks like. So this is the first assignment in this unit. I've basically titled it Statistics. So you're going to see an assignment called S1, Statistics, Central Tendency, and the actual Mathletics assignment that you're going to be working on today is Mean from Frequency Table. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So basically, if you recall from our graphing unit, when we talked about frequency histograms, you can hopefully remember this type of graph, a frequency histogram graph. And in there, what we're seeing is that the occurrence of the number 2 in the data was 6 occurrences of that. The occurrence of number 4 was 8, and so forth. Now, what we discussed very briefly in that lesson was this idea of the measures of central tendency, which we're going to be discussing in more detail in the next few lessons. So what we have is, in this, once again, we would have 6 2s, and we would have 8 4s, and we would have 7 6s, and we would have 4 8s, and then we would have 5 10s. Now, when we add all of those numbers up, when we add all the 2s, all the 4s, all the 6s, all the 8s, and all the 10s, we have a total of 168. Now, when we add up how many numbers we actually have, we actually counted up all of the numbers, we have 30 numbers. So to figure out the average or the mean of this set of data, we simply take the total value of all of those numbers and we divide it by the number of numbers, which is 30, to arrive at this mean of 5.6. So we're going to be looking at that today, how to do the mean. But just a quick overview, the other 2 concepts we look at is median and mode. So the median is the middle score for the set of data. So when we think about the middle score, what we do is we count out what basically are number 15 and 16, because 15 and 16 are basically on either side of the middle point of the 30 numbers. And if we order these from lowest to highest, like I've done here, 6 and 6 would be numbers 15 and 16 in order of these. So when we take that, we take 6 and the other 6, we add them together, we divide by 2, and we end up with a median value of 6. Now, mode, on the other hand, is the most frequent occurring value. And in this case, the one that occurs most often is the number 4 that occurs 8 times, and therefore the mode is 4. Now, we also discussed at that point something about range, which is basically the difference in the numbers from starting at 2 and going to 10, so there's a range of 8. But we won't be focusing on that particularly. So the 3 key concepts for central tendency are going to be mean, median, and mode. Now, just as a bit of a definition for you, central tendency is defined as a measure of central tendency is a single value that attempts to describe a set of data by identifying the central position within that set of data. So in other words, we have 3 different types of central values. One is 5.6, one is 6, and one is 4. Each one represents a little bit more, but it gives us an idea of where the middle point is, in essence, of all of the values. And so today what we're going to be looking at is the Mathletics assignment and figuring out how to actually determine the mean, or another word for mean is average, from a frequency table. So let's take a look at this example here. So it's asking us to calculate the mean, and basically what the mean is in this particular case is we need to firstly understand what a frequency table is. So what it's saying is that there were 4 different numbers that appear in this set of data, and we have one that is 21. So in other words, there's one number that is 21. But there is also then 3 numbers that are 22. So there's going to be 3 occurrences of the number 22. Now, I'm not going to write out that there are 14 occurrences of the number 23 or 17 occurrences of 24, because that would be a lot of writing. But hopefully you get the idea. So in essence, what we're doing is that we could if we wanted to figure out the total value, we could simply multiply the number that we have by how many times it occurs. So this is the number is here, the x, and the number of times it occurs is here. So 21 times 1 would be 21. 22 times 3 would be 66. 23 times 14, I would have to put into a calculator. I can't do that in my head. And likewise, 24 times 17. What we're going to get is we're going to get a value here. So we're going to add up all 4 of those numbers, and we are going to get a value. And then we're going to have to take that number, and we're going to have to divide it by the number of numbers we have. So if I add up this, 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 14 is 28, plus 17 is 35. So there is a total of 35 numbers. So whatever the total is here, this is the total value. Whatever that total is, which we'll plug into the calculator in a second, we are going to then divide that by the number of numbers that we actually have to figure out the mean. So this will be our mean. So let me just plug this all into the calculator then, so you can see how this would work. So let's switch screens here, and we'll just go to the calculator. So the first thing, once again, we want to do is we want to find out how many numbers we actually have and keep note of that. So if we weren't able to do that in our head, there's 1 frequency of the number 21, there's 3 frequencies of the number 22, there's 14 frequencies of the number 23, and there's 17 frequency of the number 24. Collectively, that makes 35. There's 35 numbers. So we'll just remember that in our head. Now, what I need to do now is I need to multiply each of those. So 21 times 1, which obviously would be 21. We then need to add to that 22 times 3, because there's 3 occurrences of 22. Then we need to add to that 23, and then the 14 occurrences of the number 23. And then I press the plus sign, and then we're going to have the number 24 and the 17 times 17 occurrences of that. Now I'm going to end up with a value which is 817. So that's the total number, the total value of those all those numbers. Now I need to then divide that by how many numbers we actually had, which once again we calculated was 35. So this ends up with being a value of 23.34. And if we round to 1 decimal place, that would be 23.3. And therefore, that is why when I come back in here, the answer to this is 23.3. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Now let's take a look at another example here. So this is another question. It says calculate the mean, and here are the set of numbers here. Now, I just used the calculator for this, but I just want to show you another way that we can use to do this, which is a spreadsheet. So I'm just going to click over here, and I have basically the copy of this question here. And what I've done is in this spreadsheet, and you may not be familiar with a spreadsheet, but basically it allows you to put values in and do calculations. So in essence, what we're saying here once again is these are the numbers we have in purple. We have the number 1, we have the number 2, we have the number 3, we have the number 4, we have the number 5, we have the number 6. And the number of times that this occurs in the data sets is over here. So we had 19 occurrences of the number 1, 8 occurrences of the number 2, 7 occurrences of the number 3, 16 occurrences of the number 4, 9 occurrences of the number 5, and 18 occurrences of the number 6. Now, in essence, to figure this out, what we want to do once again is we're going to multiply these numbers by each other, right? So what we see here is that when we do that, and I've just used a formula to figure this out, but this is what is going to be the value. So 2 times 8 is 16, 3 times 7 is 21, and so forth. Now, if I total all of these up, then the total of this is 273. Now, if I total up all of the frequencies, in other words, how many numbers we had, all of these add together is 77. So I had 77 numbers, and the collective value of those is 273. So I take the total value and I divide it by 77, and the value, the answer here is 3.545. Now rounded to 1 decimal place, that would still only be 3.5. And that is why then that when I click on here and come in here, we see that the value is 3.5. Does that make sense, hopefully? So I'm just going to erase this off here. And we'll go and look at the last one, which we'll use a calculator for, because you'll probably be using a calculator to solve most of these. So let's take a look at one last example. So this one here is asking us to calculate the mean of these 5 different types of numbers and how many frequency it has. So once again, if we are looking at this, what we're going to be doing here is we need to firstly figure out how many total numbers we have. So 18 plus 1 is 19, sorry. Plus 15 would be 34. Plus 10 would be 44, and plus 3 would be 47. So we have 47 total numbers here. Now to figure out what the total value of each of these is, we're going to need to multiply each of these together. So the 21 times 18, the 22 times 1, and so forth, we need to multiply them individually and add them. So the way we do that in the calculator is let's switch to the calculator now and do this. So first thing, let's just double check our number of how many numbers we have. So we had 18 occurrence of 21. We had 1 occurrence of 22. We had 15 occurrences of 23. We had 10 occurrences of 24, and we had 3 occurrences of 25. So that's where we got that value of 47 total numbers that we have. So just keep that in mind, 47 total numbers. Now what I need to do is I need to take the number and then multiply it by the number of times it occurs. So in other words, if there's 18 times that 21 occurs, the way we can figure out what that total value is by simply multiplying. So 21 times 18. Then I can add to this 22 times the 1 occurrence of that, and then 23 times the 15 occurrences of that, and then 24 times the 10 occurrences of this, and then 25 times the 3 occurrences of this. This arrives at a total value of all those numbers is 1,060. We then need to divide that by the total number of numbers, which once again we had, which was 47, and this is going to give us our mean, which is 22.55. Now, because it's a 5 is the second decimal, we have to round it to 22.6 as our answer. So if I were to click over here and come in, this is the why 22.6 is the correct answer. Now, one other thing to consider when you're doing the mean, if you get a value for your mean that doesn't fall somewhere in between these values, then you've done something wrong. So if I got a number like 16 or something, well, 16 is not even one of these values, and it doesn't make sense that it falls outside of the lowest number we already have. Likewise, if I had a number like 52 or something, it doesn't make sense that 52 would be the average number of numbers that occur between 21 and 25. So 22.6 falls between this, so at least it makes sense. Hopefully that is enough for you to carry on and do the Mathletics assignment. As always, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to send me an email or even give me a call. Take care.